review. But which of the following would be best comp for a CMA purposes? Which would be the best comp for CMA purposes? All right, and the correct answer there was a similar home. Hold on a second. I'm gonna move around some stuff on my screen so I can make sure I can see everything that you guys are seeing. A similar but larger house that sold in the same neighborhood. So let's talk about why that one is better than the rest. Okay, it's similar to the subject property. It's a little bit larger, but you know what? We can adjust that by using the you remember the square footage calculation. And as Roger asked a little bit earlier in the week, if we want you to adjust for square footage, we will give you that number. And then as Sheldon asked earlier in the week, you're going to adjust for every square foot on the exam. In other words, in the field, I suggested that I don't always suggest adjust for every square foot, but on the test, you're absolutely going to. Let's look at the other popular one, a house similar to the subject property that is currently on the market. That's where I tricked you on that one. Remember, for comp purposes, we don't use current listings, okay? Any other questions on that one? The other one, the 12 months ago, I don't know if I ever actually said this in class, but to me, the rule of thumb is I want a house that has closed within the last 6 months because I want a house that is as current as possible on sale.
I saw that question, and when I read 12 months ago, I said, this is not correct. And when I said that, I pressed the button. I Jesus.
Yeah, that's okay. Miss them now so you get them right later. I did not adjust for time, so I'm sorry. It's probably going to be that 30-second thing again, but I think these are most of them are kind of short, so I think you're going to be okay on that one. All right, so we're off and running here. Ashley takes the lead. Janani following close by. Which of the following is true regarding CMAs and BPOs? I need to go back and fix up some of my answers here, Lisa. I told you I did these late at night last night, so I made some typographical errors on this. Okay, brokers may create CMAs for compensation, and I don't want to reteach the class on this one, but what happened is back during this short sale boom, what happened was banks would pay brokers, and notice I keep inflecting on brokers. They would pay brokers to do CMAs because it would have been expensive to pay an appraiser to go out and do all these CMAs during the short sale boom. And brokers could do that and they could be compensated for it. Let's go rule out some of the other ones. Appraisers do appraisals. Appraisers don't do CMAs. They do appraisals, okay? And this one was supposed to say PBs cannot provide BP. Oh my gosh, I messed up the whole thing. It's supposed to say PBs cannot provide broker price opinions for sellers. The reason that that one is not true the way it's stated, PBs can do CMAs or BPOs. They just can't do it for compensation. But if a PB is listing a house, they could go out and do a CMA for the seller for that purpose. And then the last one, I just threw some state laws at you to try to trick you on that. Nobody fell for that particular one. But anyway, do y'all have any questions on that? It seems like there wasn't a lot of confidence on that. And part of it in my typos. Go ahead, Roger.
Did you put PIs cannot provide? What is PIs?
It was supposed to be PBs. It was supposed
Okay.
to be PBs. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure why it corrected to PIs, but it was supposed to be PBs. Cannot provide BPOs for sellers. They can, the PBs can provide CMAs if it's part of getting a listing, for example. Okay. So Roger's saying that one's my fault. He'd have got that one if it hadn't been for my fault. So I'll take the blame for that.
No, it's not your fault. I have a problem with this, like syllabus. Jesus Christ! You guys, Americans, you consolidate figures in
We just use acronyms all over the place.
think there's something wrong with the players. I'm in there twice.
Huh, interesting. Which of the economic principles states an improvement is only worth the value that it adds to the property? Okay, good. I'm glad that y'all recognized this one because I did not teach you this part of the class. And I was trying to figure last night how I wanted to word it. I wanted whether I wanted to use what was in the notes or if I want, this is the way I call the economic principle of contribution. I say an improvement's only worth the value that it adds to the property. In your notes, it might have been slightly different. And of course, on the test, you're going to have a little more time. And so you won't get as stressed about this. But the point I was trying to make is that don't assume we're going to use the exact same words, excuse me, for these things. And you have to be able to recognize it. And y'all did really well on that one. Good job. All right, Ashley's killing it up there. And Nadia, you're still having trouble with the button. If you need to go out and come back in, I wonder if it'll let her go out and come back in. But even if you can't, keep playing the game.
No, the Nadia that I'm playing with is fine. NQ is extra and Roger isn't fun. Are you in there, Roger?
Oh, you know what, you're right.
I'm very bad at this type of tests.
Okay, okay.
Always being behind, so I'm not. There is nothing wrong with my computer. It's my mind.
That's okay. keep playing the game whether you're in here or not. But I see what you're talking about now, Nadia. Which economic principle is the basic idea behind the CMA? Good job on that one. I stole this from an old test question. And the reason it's substitution is the idea behind the CMA is basically what we do in a CMA is we say, well, if that property were on the market today, it would sell for this price. So what we do is just we borrow from other closed sales to determine which this one is. The economic principle of substitution says all things being equal, someone's only going to be willing to pay whatever the market says that they should pay. That's why, it's funny talking to sellers a lot of times when you do a listing presentation, if they want to overprice the house, I like to use the economic principle of substitution. Even they've not studied it. They don't know what it means. But the idea is that I try to get them to put themselves in the buyer's shoes and say something like this. Look, if there are 3 houses on the market and one of them is more expensive than the other 2, which one are you going to buy? You're certainly going to buy one of the lesser price ones if they're all the same. Now, we all know that houses are never the same. So what we talk about is the idea of utility. You may see that word come in your reading. They all have equal utility. They are all in the same neighborhood. They all have the same amenities. They're all 1,800 square feet, blah, blah, blah. Economic principle of substitution, CMA. All right. Bray making a move here, but Ashley is still in the lead. Ashley, by the way, if you're in the office today, I need to see you before we go.
She's not.
She's playing from home. All the following are true regarding highest and best use, except this is an except question. Got you a little bit on this one. This is actually kind of a note question. For a property at any given time, there's only one use of property that is its highest and best use. And that is the use that would bring the highest present value. So what's interesting in it is, notice that because it's an except question, it does in fact have to be legal. It does have to be possible. And when we say possible, the ground has to be able to support it. In other words, if you ever wonder why you never see a Walmart on the side of a mountain, it's because on a mountain, you don't have enough flat footage to put a Walmart on, and the use must be feasible. I used to tell a story in class about a piece of property we were selling in the small town of Spring Lake, North Carolina. and somebody wanted to put a high-rise office complex in there. They were calling from Atlanta, Georgia. I said, man, I'm not sure Spring Lake needs a lot of high-rise office complexes. It wasn't feasible for that location. The interesting thing about the one that was the exception, a lot of properties right now are not operating in their current highest and best use. And if you, as an agent, see a property that's not operating in its highest and best use, let's say it's just an old dilapidated house, but it's in an area of commercial development, you're going to evaluate that house based on the fact that it's in a commercial environment as opposed to just an old dilapidated house. There's a lot of properties that are not currently in their highest and best use. And there's nothing illegal about that. Give you an example. In Holly Springs, there are a lot of farms right now. Well, they could sell those farms probably for several $100,000 per acre. But you know what? They're their farms and they like farming. And so they're not obligated to do the highest and best use. They're just leaving money on the table. Okay. Question number 6 coming up. Nadia making her move now. And Roger is in the game. All right, let's keep going. If the subject property has a garage, but the comp does not, what is the appropriate adjustment? All right, I told you I was going to ask you this question. So now you've kind of seen what it looks like. The subject has a garage, but the comp does not. Remember, we always look at it from the standpoint of the comp. Okay. In this case, the comp is inferior because it doesn't have a garage. And so I know if the comp is inferior, I'm going to increase. All right. So add to the comp is the one that goes along with that. Now that you've kind of seen that question, and you'll see some in your notes like this as well. Before I ever saw the answers pop up, in my mind, I was already doing the calculation on this. I was trying to figure it out. Don't be too proud to take little notes, draw little pictures, whatever you have to do. Don't be too proud to get a problem right. And then, of course, you know, you never adjust the subject property. One of you fell for adjust the subject property, so I got you on that time. That's going to be the last time I get you on that, though, because you never adjust the subject property. The subject property is perfect, even when it's not. All right, Ashley still holding on to the lead. The income approach would be whatever that says, used to evaluate what type of property. Good job on that one. You know, it's kind of interesting. I didn't mean to do this when I wrote the problem, but the apartment complex is clearly the right answer because it's an income producing property. Again, not using the words we talked about in class, because in the class, we always talked about the income approach for an income producing property. So you had to square it in your mind that the apartment complex was the income producing property. Government building and unique properties, they would be the cost approach. And that's the way I want you to start looking at these questions. We're going to put an answer that is wrong, but plausible there. And then a multi-generational home, that's kind of confusing. It probably would be sold using the sales comparison approach, but it may be the cost approach as well.
Income approaches for commercial units, right?
But see, but I don't want you to use the word commercial because remember, there's some commercial properties that you would use the cost approach, like a warehouse, for example, you'd probably use the cost approach on that. So Roger, just be real disciplined on the income approach or the capitalization approach is for income producing properties. So what you do is you look at that property and ask yourself, is it producing income by virtue of being a whatever it is?
You know, for example, an apartment complex in a multi-generational home is, what is a multi-generational home? What is this?
Well, the reason I use the multi-generational home is they're building some homes now that will allow for a separate living unit. A lot of times they'll call them an in-law suite and a mother-in-law suite. And then some people will actually turn them into duplexes. And the duplexes, you probably, yeah, there you go.
I got another. This is for, okay. Totally no wrong. I thought this was like a kind of a asylum. You know what I mean? Like the place where.
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, Bree is now making her move. True or false? Be quick-fingered on this one. Cost approach valuations are easily calculable by agents in the field. True or false? Okay, let me tell you why I asked this question. As we were coming through the cost approach on when we read together Wednesday, I guess it was, I had mentioned to you that I got to be honest, you're probably not going to see a cost approach math question on the exam. And the reason that you're probably not going to see a cost approach math example on the exam is because they don't want to encourage real estate agents to do these. So that they are not easy to calculate. That's why I asked this. The answer on this one was, in fact, false. I know we teach it to you in the class, but we never expect for you to do one. Janani jumping back up in the lead in the second place now. Ashley still holding on to the lead. What is the formula for finding NOI?
What is NOI? I don't remember this.
It's the net operating income. Okay. Those that answered did well. Roger, on Wednesday, we talked about the idea of the formula for the income approach. Gross potential minus vacancy equals gross effective minus expenses equals net operating income. And then one you haven't seen yet that'll come up in a later chapter, net operating income minus debt service equals cash flow. And so
yesterday I spent all day long studying Unity 6. I didn't touch a Unity 7.
That's fine. That's fine. I did want you to see that
You
question.
put some questions for Unity 6 here.
I did want you to see that question because that's a great question for test purposes right there. Oh, and by the way, for test purposes, we don't really do the acronyms. We spell it out. The subject property is yeah, good job on that. The subject property is the one that you're looking for the value of. Good job.
Oh, at least this one I won.
All right, true or false? Be quick. A bank may rely on a BPO performed by a broker for making a loan to a consumer. Good job on that. They can do it to maybe help them for like a short sale or something like that, but never as the basis for making a loan. Good job. Which of the following is considered an expense when calculating net operating income? Okay, pretty good on that one. There was a specific slide in the class where we talked about building depreciation, debt service, and capital improvements not being expenses during NOI. And then as time goes on, kind of relate them to what they're important to. Building depreciation is a great topic for taxes. Debt service was a great topic for the finance chapter. And then capital improvements comes up in a couple of different chapters on that as well. Building maintenance is a true expense.
It's funny because when I understand the question, normally I took the right question, the right answer.
Good work. All right, leaderboard staying the same, but Janani is on fire. She is on fuego. What is the word for the appraiser's evaluation of the three valuation methods to determine which is the appropriate one? There you go. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that one because you already know it. And hopefully you're getting to a stage now that sometime, every once in a while, you'll see something pop up and you automatically know it just as soon as you see it. Ashley has her hand raised. What's going on? Ashley, there you are.
Yeah. While I love your voice so much, can you not read the question?
Okay, I won't read it all then.
It's hard for my brain to process when
Okay.
it's
I
both.
won't read it all then. I thought reading the questions would be okay if I didn't read the answers, but I'll remain silent even on the
I
questions.
know it kills you. It really does. I know, but it would help. It would
I'm
help
glad
me.
that you know me so well now that you recognize that'll kill me not to read these questions. Would it be easier if Lisa read them? She has a more okay.
It's not the voice. It's trying to process it in two ways at the same time. So
Gotcha.
auditory and visual.
Good to know. Good to know. Okay, here comes your next question. Yeah, good job on that. I couldn't figure out exactly how to ask that question, but it looks like y'all did fine on that. The fact that, if it says the useful life of a building is 70 years and the value of it 700,000, just divide 700,000 by 70 years. So you guys got it.
Are we seeing the same question?
I think you got that wrong, Chris.
We all got the wrong
They all
answer.
got the wrong answer.
Oh, I can't stop it. Answer this one and we'll go back. Okay, the age that a building appears to be is its effective age. And you can see I use other similar ages there that you may have seen. On the previous question, it is the straight line method. So if you all got it wrong, I may have just checked the wrong box. I may have, okay. So let me repeat on the last question. I didn't want y'all getting so many points. Y'all were starting to break my machine because your scores were so high. But let me repeat that just to make sure. The straight line method is the way that you calculate that. I apologize if I had it incorrect on my screen. All right. Next question. Excellent. That is, in fact, the useful life. Whoever put effective age there, if you hit the wrong button or if you have confusion about that, I love these little terms right here because I do think you're going to be tested on these. You guys seem to be doing pretty well with these terms. And let me remind you what I told you about this chapter, the valuation chapter, because of where it comes in the exam. It's kind of at a hit the wall phase. So as I'm looking around at you guys on this Friday, you're looking a little more sullen than you have in previous Fridays. And so I'm thinking that that's what it is that your brains are partially filled with this stuff. But you know what? Take a gimme wherever you get one. Chapter 9, not chapter 9, chapter 7 has a lot of vocabulary in it. And as Roger is saying, he's still trying to catch up. He's still in 6. But once you get to this chapter, knowing this vocabulary right here, they become freebies for you once you know the vocabulary. Not saying there won't be hard stuff here, but a lot of it is vocabulary based. Good job. I didn't ask this. Does anybody know what another name for useful life is? Does anybody know what another name for useful life is? This will make it even more confusing for you. Economic life. Useful life and economic life are the same thing. The problem is economic life looks a little bit like effective age, so that kind of gets people, those E words are still getting them, but useful life is the same as economic life. They could use those synonymously. All right, question number 17. Here we go. Interesting here. In this case, functional obsolescence obviously was the correct answer. I did get that one right in this case. Functional obsolescence, I describe as time has passed it by. Well, you knew it was the 70s, but not only is it a 70s house, but this is clearly one that has not been updated to the other houses in the neighborhood. Outdated kitchen, outdated bath, functional obsolescence. The other two, I'll go ahead and tell you, they may come up in a question, but I want to make sure I say it just in case they don't come up in a question. Economic obsolescence is basically a situation. I think I used Detroit when I was talking about this on Wednesday, where they shut down the car factories. Everybody leaves. Well, unfortunately, that hurts the prices. Economic obsolescence is a problem outside of outside of the owner's ability to control that. And then physical deterioration is normal wear and tear. And so what we mean by that is, go throw on a can of paint and replace the carpets. Okay. Not so much outdated as just worn. Okay. So good ones to keep in mind there. I love that little question. And I think you can get sharp on that as you get ready for the test. Oh, Johnny, jump to the
Pushed you
top.
out, Ashley.
I mean, she's making a comeback with 3.
Actually, I said, get it, Janani.
Yep. All right, here we go. Let's get a little competitive here at the end. Here we go.
I'm sure Ashley's going to pick up pretty soon.
All right, you all got that one right. And did y'all notice Janani's strategy on that? She knows that Ashley doesn't like people talking when the question's up. So Janani was talking a little bit when the question come up. I saw what you did there, Janani. That was actually kind of cool that you're getting getting competitive and strategic on this. All right.
True word of encouragement from a teammate.
This understanding basic economic theory on this. Y'all did well on that one. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Two more. Good job on that one. Yeah, that's one of those that on the test, as long as you have time to read it, I think you're going to do pretty well. And so new company coming to town, bringing 1,000 jobs, going to drive prices up. Slow growth city council was the one I thought I'd get you with, but nobody fell for that one. Well, if they're slow to grow, they're not building a lot of houses, which means there's going to be low supply, which means likely higher prices. And then, of course, price of lumber going up is actually going to drive property up, prices up as well, because the contractors have to, of course, take that into consideration. So really good job on that one. See if there's any, oh my gosh, look at that. 3 points here. I don't want to put any pressure on you guys. Actually, I do. This is kind of like in the end of a ball game and you're at the free throw line. All right. And you got to make the front end of the 1-and-1 to send it into overtime. So no pressure on this last
Call
question.
me JJ Reddick.
Okay. Automatic, Miss Automatic. Here we go. All right. It is, in fact, a professional opinion of the value. And I know that you're all patiently waiting to see what the scores are on this. So I thought this would be a good time for story time while you're waiting for this. I was teaching it. I want to ask you this question and see if y'all know the answer to this. Is if a house goes under contract, okay? A house goes under contract and the house is appraised and the appraisal comes back low. And the buyer says, well, I'm not going to buy it if the appraisal is low. So the buyer walks away. Would the appraisal be a material fact that a second buyer should be told on that property? Would an agent have to tell the second buyer that there was a previous appraisal on the property? What do you think? Give them a chance, Lisa. You just heard it yesterday. No one wants to volunteer. Bree, all right, she's gonna be brave. She's in.
I know, so I'm going back and forth. My reasoning is that it would be because it is directly related to the property.
Okay, all right. I saw another hand go up. Was that you, Bree, or was that somebody else?
Janani.
Yeah.
Janani, go ahead. What's your thoughts?
So before I say, so the question is, could you just repeat the question once again for me, just so that I'm
Do you need the whole scenario set up, or do you just want to know what the question was?
both, yeah, just
Okay,
go
okay.
on, it was
All
too
right.
fast, sorry. Yeah.
So house is under contract. I'll give you some numbers. The house is under contract for $500,000. Okay. The
Mhm.
appraisal comes back at 475. And so the buyer's like, I'm out. I'm not going to buy it if it doesn't appraise. House goes back on the market for $500,000. Does the listing agent have to disclose the previous appraisal?
I think it depends on how
Oh,
early
listen,
the
it
price-
depends. She's been around real estate long enough. She's already saying depends. It depends is not going to be one of the answers on the question on the test. The question, Janani, is would it be a material fact?
Yes.
Okay. You guys made some great logical thinking. However, it turns out in this case you are wrong. Now, let me tell you why. Look at the definition of an appraisal. It's a professional what?
Opinion.
Can opinions be facts? No,
No.
an opinion can't be a material fact. And if it makes you feel any better, 95% of the people in my class yesterday missed it, who were in fact already agents. So they couldn't get over this as well. But because it's an opinion of value, you don't have to disclose it as a material fact. All right, now what everybody wanted to see, there are final numbers here. Let's see what the podium looks like today. Bree coming in at a solid third after a slow start there. Janani in second place, and then by a 31-point margin, TGIF, which I didn't even have to guess as that was Ashley because she spends most of the week waiting for Friday. So I knew that that's who that was from the start. Good job on that. Any questions or comments on that one? Oh, shoot, I can't figure out how to get out of this game now that it's over. How about if I just simply unshare it? Unless, did you want to take a picture of it, Ashley, and show your kids so they'll know what you do at work? Okay.
Henry, do you care that I just won this game? Yeah, he doesn't care.
He's like, no, not. Were there any prizes? Were there any like Kit Kat bars or anything like that?
Played Kahoot. His face got really big. He was very excited. There's no school today, so he's here with me.
Why is there no school today? Is there actually no school today, or did he just tell you there is no school today?
No, there's technically no school today, but he goes to a charter school, so they don't follow the normal
Okay.
schedule.
Okay. Well, glad you could join us today. All right. I told you for the last we'll go an hour like we normally do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play word association. So I want your fingers to be close to your speaker thingy so you can talk. And I'm just going to throw out a word, and you're going to tell me the 3 to 5 things that are important about that. In other words, when I say the important things that are important, what are you going to be tested on? You know? So if I were to throw out, let's start easy, Lisa. Let's start with an easy one. Working with real estate agents disclosure. Working with real estate agents disclosure. What immediately comes to mind?
First contact.
More specific. First what?
First.
Substantial.
First
Contact,
substantial.
Yeah.
First substantial contact. Okay. Okay. Can first substantial contact occur by the phone?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. It absolutely can. Well, how are you going to give someone a copy? Because with the working real estate agents disclosure, you have 2 obligations on it. You're supposed to do this and this. What are the 2 things you have to do?
You have to go through and disclose what it is, like talk through the steps of what your agency
Right.
offers, and then
Right.
have them at the bottom acknowledge that they have been disclosed or it's been disclosed to them.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to describe it and provide it. Two separate things. And of course, they're just acknowledging. How can you do that on the phone? You can do one of them, right? You can review it, right? But you can't give it to them unless you send it by like a email or text or something like that. Or do you remember how many days you have to get them a copy if you haven't yet seen them in person? 3. It's a lot of 3s in this course, right? Matter of fact, Lisa, let's try them on that real quick. If I were to tell you the number 3, why is the number 3 important in this class?
Because you have to hold records for 3 years.
3 years, you have to hold records for 3 years. There you go. What else?
You have to give it back this paperwork to whatever in 3 days.
Copies of documents within 3 days. And
You
I-
have to do 3 reconciliation. When you do a reconciliation, you do 3 appraisals different.
Yeah, typically use it at least 3. I don't know if you've gone over this other one yet, so I'll go ahead and give it to you. There will be a 3-day rule about when money has to be in a trust account. Has that come up yet in this class? 3 days for the money to be in a trust account. Okay, so I'll give you a little break on that one. How about the number 120? If I were to tell you the number 120, how would that come up in this course?
This is a regulation on us.
Mechanics lane.
There you go, boom, she got it, mechanics lien. I got the Wayback Machine for that one. The mechanics lien. What's the other date associated with the mechanics lien?
180.
That's right, 180, 122.
What- Can you put the correlation? Because I have a mistake. 120 is the time you have it to file.
Yeah, it's Roger, it specifically says, now remember, mechanics lien, I know it's been a long time since it's been in your mind, so you may have to go back and freshen up on this, but a contractor has up to 120 days to record a valid lien and from the last day of delivery of goods and services, okay? And then they have up to 180 days from the last day of delivery of goods and services to file a lawsuit if you don't pay it. So they can't file the lawsuit without first having filed the lien. And the 120 is actually subsumed within the 180 days. So it's not like they get additional 180 days, okay? And realistically, that's about the only thing that you're going to have to know about that. How about, what's another good number? This is fun. This is fun. Numerology here. Oh, 18 months.
Can I say? Is the time you have to complete your post license study or course, 3 courses
18 months from what day?
from the day you got your approval.
Perfect, perfect. From the day that you received your license. Okay. Yeah.
You need to be, if you've had a client that you've worked with within the last 18 months and they are not on, they are on the do not call list and they've given you permission, then you could reach out to them.
Get the big brain on Janani. That did y'all remember that one?
Can you repeat, Janani? What did you say?
So,
Wait a minute.
So there are, when it comes to, reaching out to people, we read about, fax, the email notification, no call list, do not call registry. So there were some exceptions to it. One of the exception was if you worked with a customer within the last 18 months,
Yeah.
and they gave you permission to call.
Yeah.
You
Okay. That's
Yeah.
right. Remember.
And remember the other date was 3 months. You could call them up to 3 months after you've provided them information regarding your services. But the difference there is they didn't use you. Okay. 18, you actually acted as their buyer or seller's agent or a property manager or something like that. Very good. That was strong on that one. I was not even thinking that one when I said it. All right. Y'all are doing too good on this. So let's try a tough word. Remember, you're trying to tell me the words that pop into your mind when I say this. Designated agency. Designated agency. Play word cloud with designated agency. Go ahead, Roger.
Is when the same brokerage company has 2 separate agents to sell a house in their portfolio to the same guy, if they agree to do that. If both buyer and seller agree to do that.
Okay. And when you say it's the same firm, designated agency is a type of what?
I'm sorry, say again.
Designated agency is a type of what?
The representation of the buyer and seller, right?
Certainly, yes, but I want an association here. Nobody said it yet. Designated agency is a form
The
of
type of
Dual agency.
dual agency.
dual agency. That's what I was looking
Sorry.
for.
Do
I
it.
put in
Ashley
my
put it in
answers.
chat. Ashley had put it in chat.
Oh, somebody had already put it in chat. Okay.
Ashley had.
And then she asked a question, must it be in writing? I'm curious why you, did you say must be in writing, question mark, or were you making that as an affirmative statement?
As like it must be in writing, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, I got you on that. There is, typically speaking, dual agency does have to be in writing, certainly no later than the offer to purchase. But I don't remember if I said this to someone recently. I can't remember if it was your group or not. But there is an exception for oral buyer agency. If you're an oral buyer agency and you show a house listed by your firm, you can get permission to do oral dual agency until no later than the time of the offer to purchase. Okay. The best way to study for that is, I mean, just the test questions. I know in Learn Test Pass, we had written some test questions about that because it's really hard to understand rhetorically. You have to see it in writing. Okay. Who can practice designated agency? Now that we said it's within the firm, what are the two rules? That's the way to ask that question. What are the two rules regarding designated agency?
A PB and a BIC can't, right?
Okay.
Or a PB can't do the transaction because if the BIC is one of the people doing the transaction, I'm
Okay.
trying to figure out what words to use.
No, it's you've got the right connection. And remember, you guys are probably never going to say it quite as fluently as I do, except for Janani, and she killed that one on the do not call. But anyway, the way I would say that, Bree, is a provisional broker cannot be designated for one party if that PB's broker in charge is designated for the other party. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
So that's, you're fine.
Eloquently said.
That the way that you made that connection is that's really what we were going for there. And I'm trying to think how we would, here's how we would try to trick you on that, Bree. You're going to see that question and it says a PB and the broker in charge. And in your mind, you have already said, well, they can't do this. Well, they can't do designated agency, but could a PB and BIC do dual agency together? They absolutely could. And basically they're quiet about everybody's confidential information. No sharing. Okay. Very good. Does anybody remember what the other rule for designated agency is? You can't be, go ahead.
When either of the party knows some personal information about the other, they cannot participate.
Correct. Remember the
But
word.
you have to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you have to disclose all materials, facts, and things like that. You have to disclose everything.
Yeah, once you're designated.
For me, it's very obvious. Okay, if you have two parties, the one party which represent one cannot know anything about that.
Okay.
And this is much more on a trust level because you never know what those guys are going to do for food, right?
Yeah. Let me make sure we're all on the same page on this. You always disclose material facts. So that regardless of what type of agency you're in, you always disclose material facts. Everybody okay with that point? Okay. Now, when you're designated, if I learn something, if I'm the buyer, the agent designated for the buyer, and I learn something about the seller, I'm obligated to tell my buyer, you know what, the firm should have had better policies to keep confidential information safe. So that's not the agent's fault. That's the firm's fault.
You have to do the old card.
And now remembering dual agency, if it's confidential, you can't say it regardless of how you came across it, but material facts would still be obligated. Just to wrap up that little part on designated agency to make sure we're all on the same page on that last little piece of it. An agent cannot be designated for a party if they have prior confidential information about another party. Okay. So I think
Can you please just to clarify one more time slowly because you guys go too fast and then get lost sometimes.
I'm sorry.
Regardless to this complicated work, I know the broker in charge, which is supervise a provisional broker, okay?
Yeah.
But they can do due diligence or they cannot do because this is very confusing for me. Every time you guys say I'm going one there, then you change, so I get lost. I'm sorry.
Okay. Now keep in mind, sometimes people start getting confused about what is done in an office, but we're going to be tested on what the rule says. And Roger, it is perfectly okay for a provisional broker to do dual agency with his broker in charge. Okay. But they cannot practice designated agency together. PB cannot be designated for one party if his broker in charge is designated for the other party.
They can do due diligence, but they cannot do what's the another name? is there?
Designated,
Designated.
correct, yeah.
When,
And
when you state this on a question, on a test, on an LTP, it's very easy for us. But over here on a Kahoot, it's too fast, and you guys put a lot of.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, Roger. If you're recognizing them in LTP, that you're at least getting to see it, because that is actually an important question. And as long as you're making a distinction for test purposes, you're in good shape. Nadia says, I think she's about ready for a study group. Is that what she was saying? Yeah. By the way, guys, don't forget, if you are in Apex, the ability to use our office. So if y'all need a safe place, a good place where there's snacks and water and stuff like that, meet at Starbucks, or you can come here. It's cheaper to come here because we don't charge you $8 for coffee here. Let us know.
There most days.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I was like, I'll be there most days because we're my
That's right.
office.
Ashley is typically here during the day, and between 8 and 5, we have someone at the front desk, and you just tell them who you are, and they'd be glad to get you a quiet place to meet. Let's see, another word association. What else have we studied in this class? I had a good one just a moment ago, and then it slipped my mind. Oh,
Tenant in charge, tenant in common, tenant in tenancy, all those crazy.
okay. We'll get to that in just a second. That's a good idea. Let's talk about easements. Let's play word association with easements real quick. What do y'all know about easements?
The easement is something which you should. It comes to the land. It depends. But I don't know. I'm not going to say. I understand the concept. I know the easement. In my language, easement means easy.
Yeah.
You facilitate something.
Okay.
So
Bree, go
I
ahead
would
and hop
say
in.
an easement is a type of encroachment. So you can have, like it just popped up, as you said, an easement in gross.
Okay, hold on a second, Bree. Go back for just a minute again to your first statement there. I think you said something that was close to right, but not quite right. So do you remember how you opened up? You said an easement is a what?
Type of encroachment, or is an encroachment, which
No. An easement is an encumbrance.
encumbrance.
Is an encumbrance. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, an encroachment is a
All these
vocabulary.
E words.
I told you about those E words. Weirdly enough,
Encumbrance is on the top of the umbrella. Then you come with liens, easements, encroach, whatever.
Yeah.
Reasoning.
Encumbrance covers very many sins. Okay. And it's almost better, Bree, sometimes to miss it, because once you miss it, you're like, oh,
I'm gonna remember.
I see that now. And when you're just saying them in your mind really, really quickly, they feel right. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to trick you into saying on that. I think Janani had her hand up. Yeah, go ahead, Janani.
Oh, and the other thing about easement is it's discoverable on a survey. That's an aspect of it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know how they'll test you on this, but in theory and in fact, easements should be recorded so that they will convey with the property. So yeah, they should in fact show up on surveys. Now, Ashley, I think she put easement and gross in there, which is a type of
Yeah,
easement.
I was just making word associations in my brain.
That's good. That's good, because that's I want to deal with that for just a moment. Okay, easement and gross. Do you remember what words I want you to associate with easement and gross?
I was thinking utilities, but
Commercial, utility easements. How many tracts of land, Ashley, are affected in a easement and gross? How many estates are there in an easement and gross?
Takes amendments.
Okay, here's why I wanted to mention that to you. Actually, you'll see when I ask the next question. But in an easement and gross, there's a tract of land that's called a servient estate, but there's not another parcel of land. There's an entity that has an easement across the property, like Ashley said, like a utility company or something like that. So it could be important to know that there's only one parcel of land. Now, don't let me confuse you. If it's a utility company, they have an easement across this piece of land and this piece of land and this piece of land separately, but it's one servient estate and a utility company, as opposed to an appurtenant easement. Appurtenant easement involves how many properties?
Just one or two. Two,
Appurtenant involves two. And in an appurtenant easement, there has to be a dominant and a servient estate. Between the dominant and the servient estate, which one could wake up one morning and say, we don't need the easement anymore?
The dominant.
The dominant. And notice, it doesn't really matter who created the easement. All that matters is who controls the easement. The party that is servient will always have to allow the easement across their property. The dominant, if they don't need it anymore, they can say, oh, okay, I got another road to the public right of way, so I don't need it anymore. Okay. And then Roger said, let's go back and talk about tenancies. You know why? Because we're gluttons for punishment. Let's go back and talk about tenancies. Married couples acquiring property while married are going to acquire property how?
Entirety.
Tenants by the entirety. Nadia, you volunteered, so you get to answer the rest of the questions as well. Tenancy by
You
the
realize
entirety.
no one's gonna volunteer to keep doing it.
I got another date to be at. I'm trying to get y'all to quiet so I can go to my next no, I'm not. Y'all, we can stay here forever. I got nothing going on. Okay. Is it possible, Nadia, that you can remember the 5 unities? Matter of fact, I can see Janani up there. She's going, I got them. I can tell you what they are, but we're going to wait for a minute and we're going to see if Nadia can get the 5 unities first.
The 5 unities?
Yeah.
Could you give me a little bit more?
Yep. The acronym for it is MPIT, M-P-I-T-T. Okay, so y'all didn't study it this particular way. So I will give you the acronym for it, and then I'll tell you what you need to know about it realistically. The 5 unities of tenancy by the entirety are marriage, possession, interest, time, and title. Marriage, possession, interest, time, and title. You were married at the time you acquired the property, right? Okay. You have equal possession and interest in the property. In other words, in tenancy by the entirety, 2 people don't own the property. The marital entity owns the property. So you have equal ownership that way. And then time and title, they were on the same document at the same time. Okay. Go ahead, Ashley.
I think the reason we missed that is because in the book, it's just pit. It's not in pit. So there were only 4 and it was just pit. That's what I have in my notes.
Pit would have been joint tenancy.
All right, hold on. Let me flip the page.
Okay, let me keep going with this one for a moment, though.
Yeah, sorry.
Nadia is still volunteering over here, so I want to make sure that she gets all her opportunities to volunteer over here.
Yeah.
If it's a married couple and one of them dies, what's going to happen to the property, Nadia?
It goes to the spouse.
The surviving spouse will get it through survivorship, correct?
Yeah, and it takes 1 to buy, 2 to sell.
There you go. Perfect. Married couple, Nadia, married couple, they bought the property while married. They own it as tenants by the entirety. One of them dies. Their will says that it goes to their 2 grown sons. What's going to happen?
It still goes to the spouse,
Survivor.
and then goes to the sons afterwards.
Wait, well, assuming that the next spouse dies, then yeah, whoever they left it to in their will is who it's going to go to. Survivorship trumps the will. Okay, so that's you got the part that I want you to get on that. Very, very good. All right, Bree, you just happen to be right in the middle of my screen right now, so you get this one. Okay, the same couple bought property before they were married, and they did not state otherwise in the deed. How are they going to hold title to the property?
Tenants in common.
They are tenants in common, and each of them owns how much?
Equal amount.
Yeah. Because there's 2 and it didn't say otherwise, it would just be 50-50. If there had been 3 people and it didn't say otherwise, it'd just be, but tenancy in common does allow for separate ownership. But the fact of the matter is it would have to be spelled out in the deed. So if it's silent, it's just going to be divided equally on that. Okay, tenancy in common. A owns half, B owns half. But remember, by the way, guys, remember they can use everything, right? Okay. A and B own property. A dies without a will. Who's the property go to, Bree? Tenancy in common. A dies, has no will. Who does the property go to?
Any surviving heirs?
A's
Oh,
heirs, correct?
Heirs, okay. I just,
Yeah.
whew, got me sweating over here.
You
Pretty
got it
girl.
right. You got it right. I would encourage you to take the word survivor out of that, because the word survivorship is used separately and it might confuse you. The key word you said there was heirs. Perfect.
Heirs.
Perfect. All right. So now who owns the property? B owns the property with A's heirs. And if she has 3 heirs and they own a third of 50% is what it amounts to. Okay. All right. All right. Y'all are doing too good here. You're doing too good here. Let's see if
I put all this property ownership in one single slide, which is in the PowerPoint over here in the chat. I think it's make it easy for you to see the whole picture if you need to use, okay?
you put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat. It's
Okay.
the PowerPoint over there.
Okay.
No, I just
Need
because
one too.
Okay, good, good. So y'all made your own charts on that. Oh, I see what you did.
you know,
Yeah.
make it easy to understand what I'm talking about.
So they're all right there together, so you can compare them to each other. Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, and what's funny about that, guys, is notice the questions that I'm asking about that. What happens when someone's married? What happens when someone dies, right? And you get so bogged down in the complexity of these things. That's the question at the end of the day. What happens when somebody's married, divorced, dies? Some life event happens. That's typically the question, which, by the way, one last question on this. Unmarried couple buy property prior to being married. Bree has said they own the property as tenants in common. 2 weeks from now, they get married. How do they now hold title to the property?
Isn't it
Still
the
tenants in
same
common.
until they go in and change it?
It's still tenancy in common. It's still tenancy in common. However, now that they're married, they could deed the property from themselves to themselves as a married couple, and they would now meet the 5 unities: marriage, possession, interest, time, and title. Okay. All right. All right. Y'all had enough yet, or you want to keep going?
Jesus Christ.
Keep going. Bree says keep going. So we're going to keep going here. When I was talking about tenancies, there was some, estates in real property. What is the greatest estate of ownership in real property? What is the greatest estate of ownership in real property?
Simple absolute.
The fee simple absolute. And in theory, if I own property in fee simple absolute, how long do I own the property?
Whatever. Until you die.
I own it forever. And in theory, I own it beyond my death, don't I? Because when I die, I can tell who it's going to. Fee simple absolute. All right, what am I describing if I were to say this? I have a piece of property that I own, and I own it in my hometown of Kinston, North Carolina. It's just a vacant piece of land. I don't even use it, all right? One day, I decide I don't need it anymore, so I decide to convey it to my church, the church that I grew up in, because they need it to grow, okay? So I convey the property to the church, and I said, y'all can own it as long as you use it for church purposes. What did I just create?
Condition.
A defeasible,
Something.
Feasible.
In this case, I did create a condition. I would consider this to be a defeasible fee estate. And in regards to a defeasible fee estate, what's going to happen if the church tries to sell it to Walmart?
Goes back to you.
It'll go back to you.
It's going to revert back to me, because in a defeasible fee estate, it automatically will terminate if in fact they break the condition that's in the deed. Perfect, perfect. All right, how about in this situation? I sell a piece of property, again, back in my hometown. I don't know if you know this, but in my hometown, we grow more pigs than we do people. So there are a lot of hog farms in my hometown. I own a 40-acre tract of land. I want to sell off 10 acres, but I want to put a condition in the deed that says this: you can own the property as long as you don't put a pig farm there. Okay. What did I just create in that case?
This is the fee hold state condition, defeatable condition.
Condition. I created a condition subsequent.
It's exactly the church, but there's a condition.
Well, yeah, remember in this case, the difference between those two, if the church tries to sell it for anything other than church purposes, then I get it back
Yeah.
automatically. The problem with a condition subsequent, though, is this. If in fact that person does decide one day to start using it as a hog farm, what am I going to do if I want that property back?
You have to go to the church, to the court to do this, right?
I'd have to go to the court and sue them to get the property.
And are you, you know, by, I don't know, by the law, but you have to do this, you have to go to the court, but what are your chances to everything goes okay and you get your property back? Or there are
100%.
some crazy judges which interpret the law differently.
This is pretty simple. Now, the hardest part, Roger, is a lot of these that have been written in the past were not written by professional. And so it's conceivable there might be an issue with that. But this is a slam dunk. You will win in this case, assuming it was written correctly.
Is this the same as the action to quit title? Is that what we're going to do in the court? Is that the right answer?
Well, I think in this case, I'm just suing for reversion. The action to quiet title is typically if there's a mistake. In this case, there are no mistakes. We know what the law is on this. But since you brought it up, Nadia, since you volunteered again, let's see if you can answer this question as well.
He's never going to talk again.
Do you remember what topic action or suit to quiet the title is associated with?
Feasible conditional.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Isn't it the fee simple conditional?
Is that what y'all said in class? If so,
Yeah.
I'll go along with that. I usually bring it up in the section on adverse possession. And so since I'm bringing it up in adverse possession, I'm going to make you talk to me about adverse possession.
20, somebody has to be there for 20 years.
The adverse possession is the taking of property by how long a period of time, Janani?
20 years.
Did y'all use the acronym OCEAN to describe under what are the conditions? All right, then good. If y'all discuss that, you should be able to tell me what the acronym OCEAN means. And Janani, she was hot a while ago. Let's get her on the hook again. And
I don't know. I forgot what ocean is. I think we discussed it, but no.
Ashley's
High
volunteering.
ocean. It's high ocean.
High ocean. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I am cheating, so everyone just allow it. Hostile, intentional, open, continuous, exclusive, adverse, and notorious.
Yeah. Open, continuous, exclusive, adverse, notorious use for a period of, Janani said, 20 years. All right, since y'all are doing so well, I'm going to ask you this as well. Unless you're making your claim under color of title. And if you're making your claim under color of title, how many years is it?
7.
7. There you go. Perfect. It is 7 years. Okay. Y'all
So-
doing
Good question, Chris.
Why do you guys use this term color of the title? This is a slang.
I'm sorry, say again, Roger.
When you say the color of the title, this is a kind of a slang, or what is this? Or this is a technical term?
Yeah, it's a technical term, and here's what color of title means. Color of title means you're acting like you own the property, but you actually don't own the property. The reason you think you own the property is because there's a mistake in the title that makes you think you own your property. Roger, you might not be able to relate to this, but there was a court case in the late 1800s in North Carolina. The property, one of the corners, one of the markers on the property was the place in the field where Old Joe's mule stands. That was a property boundary, the place in the field where Old Joe's mule stands. So do you think that there were any mistakes of property lines when we were measuring things by where mules stood in the field? And so when you talk about color of title, somebody might think they own the land. Turns out they're incorrect, because once they do an actual boundary search on this property, they find out that they were wrong. That's what we mean by color of title. Mistaken legal title is what it amounts to.
And I think Bree had a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry I cut you off on that.
Oh, no, that was okay. I also gathered information from that. So got to go back to my question. I have heard about like the squatters and learning that North Carolina is not a state that honors their squatters, right? Because it's like my husband was like, well, can't you just go on land that you find and squatters right for 7 years and you can take possession? But North Carolina is not one of those states. Is that correct?
Confusing a couple of things there. It's hard to squat in North Carolina. I will tell you this. Okay. So if someone comes onto your property without your permission, they are characterized as a what, starting with the letter T.
Trespassing.
They're trespassing. Okay. And in North Carolina, you can get rid of a trespasser by simply calling the sheriff and telling them to remove the trespasser, right? So far, so good.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let me turn this into a test question for you, a fun test question. Okay. Let me tell you this story. This happened to my buddy over at Duke University. My buddy is a police officer at Duke University around the campus, and he gets this call all the time. There will be this young man and this young woman who have gotten together in college. So it's young love. It's such a beautiful thing. And as young love often happens, they're in college, okay, and the guy ends up losing his apartment, dropping out of school, has got nowhere to live. And he said, hey, we've been dating for 3 weeks. Why don't I just move in for you? And of course, in their love state of mind, they decide to move in together. He moves into her apartment, okay? Because he moves into her apartment, he starts receiving mail at her apartment. 6 months later, they realize that their love-sick minds cause them to make a hasty decision. And she's like, you got to go. And by the way, in the making of this story, there is no abuse. These are just two people that thought they were in love who can't get along with each other. And she says, you got to go. And he says, well, I got nowhere to go. And she said, well, you got to leave. I don't care where you go. You got to get out of here. And then listen to this. She calls the cop. And she says, this guy's got to go. You can take and remove him from my property. So my buddy shows up at their apartment and he starts looking around. And he says, look, that old beer stained futon over there, is that his? And she's like, yeah, it's got to go too. And he says, that old 10-speed bike on the wall right there, is that his? And she said, yeah, it's got to go too. That letter right there addressed to him at this address, is that his? Yep, he's going to need to change his address as well. And the cop looks at her and says, well, here's the problem. You don't have a trespasser. You have a what? Also starting with the letter T.
A tenant.
Tenant in common.
You have a tenant. You have a tenant. And how is the only way to get rid of a tenant in North Carolina?
Eviction.
Through the eviction process, which is going to take you 30 to 45 days in the court system in Durham, North Carolina. And so that's going to be 30 of the most uncomfortable days of their young lives as she is evicting her boyfriend. The difference between a trespasser and this guy, he got there legally. He got there legally. The trespasser was not legal ever. North Carolina, it's hard to make a case.
That's crazy. Oh,
Crazy
very
stuff.
good information to know.